What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY in the overall markets. I'm going to break down some big news involving Elon Musk and Tesla's helping the share price run. Not to mention what's going on with a lot of news coming out from PPI to Donald Trump's words about tariffs. I'm going to break down all the things affecting the stock market for now and Tesla stock. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. Anyways, as far as the market's going, Tesla's making higher highs and higher lows so far, doing a good job in sloping upwards. This is quite good in my personal opinion. And if we could break past our 200 EMA around this 253 area, we could continue this push for 262. The 30 minutes time frame is looking good as the EMAs on the smaller time frames are kind of like sloping upwards. And then our other ones, especially on the 4 hour, are also starting to churn. This is a good sign of lots of momentum that's being built up. Remember, guys, a couple of days ago, I was saying that Tesla has been developing these bullish divergences as it was dumping, which made me suspect there's going to be a big slingshot back up. And lo and behold, that's happening. Tesla went from 215 back up to about $250 within just 2 days. So my point is, my technicals were correct about the bounce for Tesla, and I have a lot more to say about them. But I first want to talk about why Tesla is running like this, what's happening with the charts, why it's still looking bullish. But whether or not we continue this pump will depend on some factors. So we want to talk about those as well. I'll break all of that down first, and I'll break down this chart. So what's happening with Tesla? Well, we had this very, very big news that came out that Donald Trump wanted to buy a Tesla. He was endorsing Tesla and giving lots of positive remarks about it. Donald Trump also mentioned that if anyone vandalizes a Tesla, they're going to be prosecuted very, very heavily. And then Elon Musk gave a speech right over there, and then he said some important things. He mentioned that as time goes on, Tesla is going to see its sales essentially double, basically within the next 2 years. He's looking for production to double in the US. That is some big news. The production output should be increasing. He also talked about a lot of optimism about the robotaxi, which is going to be coming out very soon. And this led to a lot of buyers to step back in. So this optimism that came out involving Donald Trump and Elon Musk is what is helping the share price go up, despite more bad news that's coming out, right? For example, we're seeing global EV sales actually jumping 30% from this time compared to last year. And despite global EV sales going up, Tesla sales are still kind of weak because of geopolitical reasons, not just in Europe, but even like the Australian sales are down about 71% in Australia. So I'm just trying to say, guys, that with Tesla only selling like 1,592 vehicles in Australia, the numbers are still not that great. And this is just a temporary bounce that we're seeing for the time being, right? Elon Musk, Donald Trump, all this positivity is what helped the share price. The question now remains, what's going to happen from this point on? There are two, maybe many major things actually affecting Tesla on top of this. So for now, we're bullish, but whether or not we continue depends on some data. We had the CPI report come out today. This data was decent. For the first time, the data is showing a decrease in CPI for all items and then on the core side. So that's actually a decent sign so far. This is optimistic for the markets, and this is part of why the market saw a bit of a pop. Even Tesla popped in the morning, and this is pretty good so far. Now, with CPI looking good so far, everything was as expected or below expectations. PPI comes out for tomorrow. What is PPI? It's the Producer Price Index. This is wholesale inflation. Tomorrow is Thursday, March 13th, an hour before the stock market opens at 8:30 a.m. We have PPI data. This will cause lots of volatility, most likely. We are hoping the numbers are below expectations. We're expecting them to be either the same as before, if not lower. So let's see if we end up getting a decrease. That's going to be very, very important for the markets, so keep that in mind. And then on top of this, another factor affecting us is Donald Trump and his tariffs. This time we have something big that's going on. So Donald Trump vows to take back what he claims is stolen from the US. I'm not saying he's right or wrong, that's just what he claims, by increasing tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to 25%. That's very, very big, guys, so please keep that in mind. This led to a lot of volatility. I also have a bunch of quotes from Donald Trump about this event. I think it's important to listen to what he's saying because he is the reason why there's so much volatility. His words and his claims are what caused the market to move at least a lot of the time. So what is Donald Trump saying? Let's read some of his quotes. Donald Trump said that he is not happy with the EU. He said the EU has gone too far and they are going after our companies like Apple. Donald Trump also said that he will absolutely put tariffs on cars. The EU doesn't take the US farm products or cars and will win the financial battle. He also said he respects China and that Canada is doing a terrible job at dairy tariffs. He said that tax policy is to stop other nations from taking business, and tax policy would stop Ireland from taking the US businesses. He also went on about how he wants to see Ukraine and Russia agree to a ceasefire. So far, Ukraine has agreed to it, but we're waiting for Russia's part. And then he also mentioned that when tariffs are increased, there's going to be a little flexibility. April 2nd is going to be a very big day, and I have the right to adjust the tariffs however I want. That's what Donald Trump said. He mentioned that flexibility on tariffs will be there, but they're going to be very, very little once they begin to start, and he's going to respond to the EU's counter tariffs. Then he went on again about the ceasefire that he is hoping for. He said he's willing to pressure Russia to sign an agreement. So that's what Donald Trump is saying so far. Those are his exact quotes. So what does this mean, at least moving forward? Well, now the U.S. is playing a game of chicken. We're increasing tariffs on aluminum and steel. And as a result, Donald Trump did also mention the possibility of a recession that could be coming very, very soon. He mentioned this year as a possibility that led to a lot of fears so far in the markets. The market's been trying to base sense, but that is something that he has been saying. And then as a result of these tariffs, now we're seeing the EU responding, right? We're seeing the European Union come out. Whoops, guys, sorry about that. The European Union is now coming out and they're saying that they want to counter Donald Trump's tariffs by increasing tariffs on $28 billion worth of US industrial and farm products. And then we have Canada saying the same thing. They want to increase tariffs on $20 billion worth of American goods. And then Donald Trump is saying that he wants to retaliate again. So Donald Trump wants to increase tariffs, whether it's negotiation or not. As of right now, that's what he says he's going to do. Now Canada and the EU are responding, and now Donald Trump is saying that he's going to respond again. So it's just a war, back and forth tariffs. These countries are once again continuing this, and it's very, very important, so keep that in mind. That is why the market is looking very volatile. Now, there's two more things affecting Tesla, right? Number one, just remember that the first two things were PPI data and Donald Trump's tariffs. One good thing about Trump's tariffs is as of right now, he's not really scheduled to give us big announcements until April 2nd. There could be some time in which he is not going to talk as much about them. We'll see what he ends up saying, if he threatens more or not. That could still affect things, but there's, at least according to Trump, we don't have anything big officially scheduled until April 2nd. That could be kind of good for us. Once again, the PPI data is going to be very big. Then two more things. We're waiting to see what happens with the U.S. government as they're trying to pass a funding bill. The Senate are going to be passing it very soon, and then that's going to go to the president to avoid a government shutdown. That could be bullish for the markets. Not to mention any ceasefire news between Russia and Ukraine. We'll see if that causes a big move. So Ukraine did their part. We're waiting for Russia right now. So we'll see how it goes. This is what we're seeing when it comes to earnings, at least so far. We're waiting for many more. I'm not going to go over the full details. It's just a reminder of the calendar. And then right now, there's still a lot of fear in the markets. Extreme fear is making up the majority of sentiment. Momentum is still at extreme fear as the market is very undervalued compared to before. The put to call option ratio is still elevated as more puts are being bought. And finally, the VIX is starting to decrease, which is a sign that the market could be looking for a bounce. Now, before I talk about the charts, I do have a sponsor for this video. Just keep in mind that if you guys deposit $100 into a Moomoo account and you sign up with my link, you are going to be guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. That's a very, very good return on investment. So keep that in mind, guys. My offer ends at the end of March. So check it out down below and in the description. Now let's focus on what's happening with the charts. So as far as Tesla's going, we're looking bullish on the 4-hour time frame. If we manage to hold above 248, we're looking for an attempt to fill this gap. If we get a big rejection, we could turn back down. Now, looking at the 4-hour and the daily, this is looking quite bullish. We do have a big gap over here, but as long as we hold above our support, we're going to be looking pretty good. If we end up losing 240, we could be dumping to fill this gap back down towards 231. And as long as we're above 240, we're favoring a move back up to 250. Breakdown, I'm looking for that gap fill for about 262. So as far as Tesla goes, we're looking very bullish after all the hype involving, the robotaxi, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump. So we may continue to try to uptrend like this. When you bring back our lines, you'll also see that Tesla's testing this resistance where this yellow trend line happens to be. So it all depends on what happens with our important data tomorrow with PPI and Donald Trump's tariffs. If you get a rejection, lose 240, we're bearish. If we manage to hold above this trend line, we're looking for an attempt to fill that gap for 262. My gut tells me we're looking a bit more bullish because there's a lot of buyers defending. This is showing no sign of rejection, and so far we have this gap to fill. So I think Tesla consolidates at 250 tomorrow. Then we might be looking for 262 as a potential target as we look a bit more bullish. The daily and the 4 hour time frames do confirm this, and we're doing a great job at holding up so far, especially if we break above our 20 EMA and hold above 248. So we're favoring 262, a nice little continuation. So far, so good by Tesla. SPY is looking decent on the 4 hour, but I do have a concern. When you look at the 30 minutes time frame, we have an inverse head and shoulders, but we did not really get a strong close on SPY so far. So if you're bullish on SPY, you want to see a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. If we get a good PPI, this could continue to push. If we break 565, then we're looking for the 570s. If we end up rejecting, we end up losing like 555, we could be dumping back down. If that fails us, we could be looking for a move back down towards the lows, the low 550 area. My gut tells me that this is looking like an inverse head and shoulders. So I think that there's a good chance this will try to pan out, but it depends on how well we hold up tomorrow. Because yesterday with CPI coming up, we popped and then we dipped and then we made a higher low and tried to bounce. Tomorrow we could pop when PPI comes out, maybe dip again. If we can make a higher low again, then this could continue to slowly uptrend for the 570s. Why do I talk about another higher low? Because we had a low here. And we're trying to hold support like this. This could be like our trend line of support, which if we hold, we could continue to uptrend very, very nicely. So far, we're looking more bullish. I think that we are favoring this upside move with this inverse head and shoulders. So give this the time it needs. For the QQQ, we're looking quite good right here. We have a potential left shoulder right here. We have a head and then a right shoulder. Overall, I think we're doing a good job of trying to form these. So far, so good. And then to add on to this, I want to add that we need to see this continue to hold up, especially going into tomorrow. So we're not officially super bullish unless we break past 480. If we could break that, we're looking for an attempt for 485 on the QQQ. If we end up losing 472, we could be jumping back down towards 468. We're making higher lows here, so I am favoring upside for 485 as the most likely possibility. But this depends on our data if we could break past 480, so we'll see how it ends up going with PPI. We might see a pop upon open, maybe a little bit of a dip, and if we could hold this trend line, as long as we hold the trend line, we could even dip below this, but as long as we get bought back above it, we're looking for an attempt for 485. So watch to see us try to break 480 tomorrow on the QQQ, and I think we're doing a fantastic job. For the Russell 2000, we have a left shoulder here, we have a head, and then we have a right shoulder looking pretty good so far. Break this 203 area, then we're looking for an attempt for 204. If we end up losing 200, we turn back down towards 198, so I think we're doing a great job. With this inverse head and shoulders, we're looking promising. We could continue to push higher for 203 to 204, so it looks more bullish in my personal opinion. However, we need confirmation such as holding above this support. If we lose 200, I'm going to be very concerned, but if we could hold above 200 at the very least, there's a good chance we continue this uptrend to slowly push for 204 plus. The Russell has potential in my opinion. SPY is looking pretty good, so is ES. Two things about ES. Number one, when you zoom out of the charts on the 4-hour time frame, we have this very clear looking support. So we have this yellow trend line right here where my cursor is as our support. We bounced off this, broke through to the next support. Then we broke out of that, and now we're holding this trend line right here. So this is the main support. This is the main support on ES. Moving forward, the 4-hour looks a little bit promising, but let me just call out the 30 minutes time frame because we have a potential inverse head and shoulders. So we're not officially bullish yet. There's a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. If we could break resistance around 56.50, this is where our 200 EMA is going to be tomorrow, then I expect the 5700s for a bounce. If we reject and we end up losing 55.50, we're going to be a little bit more bearish to break below this trend line. The trend is technically a little bit more bullish. If we could try to hold this support tomorrow, I could be looking for an attempt to continue to push. And I also want to add that going into tomorrow, we should see a pop upon open, maybe a little bit of a dip as the day goes on. If we could ride this trend line up higher, we could slowly push going into the end of the week for a bounce. There's a good chance that could be coming looking at our technicals. Why is this? Because the market is pricing in so much bad news, all the fears about tariffs and this and that, to a point where when almost everything is priced and we are due for some kind of bounce, and there's a chance it could be coming. So we'll see if we end up holding or not. Watch for confirmation. I like the fact that NQ is trying to push right now, but we need to break past 19,800 to push for the 20,000s. If we end up losing 19,400, we could turn back down to the low 19,000s, so it could go either way. But I like the fact that we are making higher lows like this, and then this could start to push for 20,000 plus. So it's doing a good job. We'll see if this holds or not, at least moving forward. For Bitcoin, we have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. If we end up breaking past 84,000, we're looking for an attempt to push for essentially 86,000. If we end up losing 80,000, we could be dumping back down towards 78,000. So I think we're doing a good job. We're looking to see if this trend line holds on Bitcoin. As long as that holds, we should continue to uptrend as Bitcoin's pushing right now. So 86,000 plus looks very, very possible. What else is helping the markets is Nvidia. I do not want to see Nvidia lose like 110 to 112. I want to see us essentially hold above 115. As long as that holds, we're looking for 117 to 120 as our targets. If we end up losing like 112, we could be dipping back down to lower levels. But for now, we're doing a great job, and I think we're looking quite bullish. So nice accumulation right here. I want to see 117 break to push for 120. We're still looking quite good, favoring the upwards direction. Tesla's also favoring upside as long as we can try to hold above 250, 248 to 250 for now. I'm going to be favoring that we try to go for that gap fill for 262. On Apple is trying to hold up. We had some bad news that came out for them about how, we had Morgan Stanley expecting their iPhone shipments to actually be lower than expected. So that could be affecting their overall production numbers. Not the best of news. However, despite this double bottom, if we could base at 215 to 214, which is where we have a big support, we're looking for a rebound for basically 220. If we lose 214, I'm going to be turning back to bearish. So we'll have to see if Apple could get bought back up. There's always potential in this chart. Netflix is doing a good job so far. As long as we're above 900, we're looking for essentially 930 as our targets. If we lose 900, we could turn back down towards 870. We are looking pretty good on the 30 minutes time frame, so just keep that in mind. And the 4 hours looking quite good. So I want to see us hold above 900. As long as it holds, we could be pushing for the 930s. On MicroStrategy, we have a gap to fill back up here towards 285. If we end up losing 250, we could be dipping lower, but as long as we're above that, we're looking for an attempt to push for essentially 285. For Celsius, we have a nice accumulation right here, inverse head and shoulders like structure. If we end up losing 26.5, I will be a little bit more concerned. I think we might be testing that tomorrow, but as long as that holds, we could try to balance and continue to push. This looks like a nice accumulation, so I want to see us hold 26.5 for confirmation. Then we could bounce even more. Supermicro might see a small dip as it tries to uptrend right here. Watching this, I'm going to be watching this trend line right here so we can draw a trend line like this. So I think what happens is we dip a bit towards 37 to 40 in that range. Might be a small pullback. And then if we could hold this trend line, we could try to bounce right back up like that. There is potential in this, especially as we're trying to hold this support. I think we could extend the support all the way to down here. So that's actually a nice confluence. Anyways, we're doing a good job. Let's just see if we can hold that support. If it does, we will continue to uptrend. So look for a pullback, maybe a bounce on Supermicro. Palantir, we want to see this thing break 86. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt for 90. If we end up losing 82, we could be dipping back down towards 75. So watch to see if we get a big push from here or not. Rivian, and needs to hold above 11.07. If that holds, I'm looking for 11.5 as our potential target. Bullish divergence has developed, so there's a good chance it tries to continue, but we need confirmation, which would be a hold above 11 to see this push more. On SoFi, I want to see this hold above 12.01. If that holds, we're looking for 12.96. If we end up losing support around this 11.5 area, we could be dumping back down. Watch this 20 EMA as resistance around 12. We'll see if we get a dip first before it tries to bounce, but eventually 12.5 plus could be coming. AMD looks bullish. If we break past 101.5, we're looking for an attempt to push for 103. And if we end up losing 99, we're looking for a dip back down towards 97. We're looking bullish, especially off this double bottom, but we'll see if this is kind of like an inverse head and shoulders, like a left shoulder, kind of like a head here, and then maybe like a right shoulder that's forming before it tries to bounce. We'll see if that ends up being the case for AMD. Might see a small pullback to about 99, and as long as we don't lose that, we could try to bounce again to push for 103. ARM, is looking a little bit better. If we could break past 115, I'm looking for 117. It depends if we could hold support. Looks a little bit weak here. It might pull back just a little bit. If we base at 110, then we could slowly try to push back up. So watch that very closely. On Coin is making lower highs right over here. As you guys could tell, we had a high here. We came down, made a lower high over and over again. We need to break 197 to turn bullish to push for this gap fill towards 212. I want to see us break 197. If we can't, it's going to be a bad sign. Like I said in my morning video, I was looking for a little pullback here like this. As long as we made a higher low and if we could hold that, we're looking for a bounce. Break 197, then we're going to be bullish. If we end up losing 185, we could turn back down, but I'm looking for a break to push even more. For Amazon, as long as we're above 199, we're looking for an attempt to push for 202 and eventually 205. And if we end up losing 196, we're looking for a dip move. I think 199 is going to most likely hold, so we're looking for an attempt for 202 or above. So there's a good chance we try to hold. For Meta, As long as we're above 619, we're looking for an attempt to push for 639. And if we end up losing that support, we could be dipping even more, especially where we have this gap down here. So watch and see if the very psychological 619 area holds. And then we could be pushing even more. Microsoft, you want to see this thing break 385. If that breaks, we're going to be looking for 388. And then Google wants to bounce here. As long as we're above 169, we're looking for an attempt for this imbalance fill at 172.5. If we lose 165, we turn back down, but this is looking a little bit more bullish. GameStop could be dipping towards 21.5. AMC is kind of flat here. We want to see if we could get back above 3 to bounce. So we're watching these levels just to be safe. DJT has 20.8 coming. The VIX is looking kind of weak on the 4-hour time frame. We have a gap to fill down here. So if we end up failing and we can't hold 23, we're going to be dumping more, which is a bullish sign. The 10-year is trying to bounce here. There's a head and shoulders here. So even if we do bounce a little bit to fill this gap towards 4.4, this will eventually start coming down because of Donald Trump's policies, because of the fact that the government wants lower interest rates and factors like that. And then the dollar is trying to bounce. If we break past 103.72, we're going to be looking for some kind of like rebound. If it rejects here, it could dip more, which is good for the markets. So we'll see. So my view is quite simple. Tesla and many tickers are looking a bit more bullish. As long as we hold 250, I think that this will continue, specifically like 248 to 250, though, just to be safe. But then we could be looking for 262 as a potential target, as we're looking a lot better. Also, SPY and other tickers are forming bullish patterns, but for them to pan out, we need to see buyers defend it just for confirmation. So we'll see. Will the market break resistance or not? We're always going to be open-minded no matter what. The charts do look a little bit more bullish, but that depends on our PPI report and also what happens with Donald Trump's tariffs and all these other factors in the news. So we'll see, guys. Watch your levels just to be safe. The bulls are gaining some momentum, but we'll see just to be safe. Have a good day. I'll see you guys tomorrow before market open. Until then, take care and peace out.